In addition, Libya has been slowly evolving as far as investment and privatization. We see privatization initiatives in petrochemicals, banking, food processing. They're seeking U.S. investment in alternative forms of energy, such as wind and power. And the problem with for the U.S., or the challenge that U.S. companies face in all this is that, one, we're coming late to the game, and two, Libya is just not a traditional market for U.S. companies. It is a traditional market for the Europeans. Libya is not a member of the WTO, and basically our ways of doing business as U.S. companies are exploring Libya for the first time. We're finding that our typical ways of doing business are often foreign to each other, that U.S. companies, especially with the sanctions period, many U.S. companies have agent and distributor networks that were put in place so that their European subsidiaries or their European or North African distributors were able to serve Libya once it opened up. And Libyans, frankly, don't understand that. We heard a lot from Libyan business. Why are we buying U.S. agricultural products through European intermediaries? Why are we talking to the U.S. distributor in Tunisia rather than in Libya? And on the other side of the fence, the U.S. is just the lack of transparency, the inability to conduct due diligence is proving to be very frustrating to U.S. companies. You have to excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So. And the fact is that so much of the market is with the Libyan government that the political relationship between the U.S. and Libya ultimately does affect the commercial relationship. Libya, interestingly enough, Libya gets very high marks on their macroeconomic management of the country. Especially the World Economic Forum places it as the 7th best macroeconomic environment in the world for 2010 to 2011. They cite second lowest government debt, third best balanced budget. They talk low inflation, and the IMF estimates growth in Libya to be around 7.5% for this coming year. However, Transparency International and other independent sources cite corruption as the absolutely most problematic factor in doing business in Libya. Diversion of public funds, irregular payments and bribes, lack of judicial independence, and the basic list goes on and on. What it's critical to understand, though, when we talk about this corruption in Libya, is that the Libyan government doesn't deny or ignore the existence of this corruption. The World Economic Forum survey that came up with this data was actually administered by the Libyan's Economic Development Board. And basically, that Economic Development Board came up with the data, and they made the data public. So Libya has been making efforts to manage its level of corruption, and also they're basically putting into place an entire new commercial code. They have new laws just in 2010 on investment, labor relations, customs, capital markets, income tax, reconciliation and arbitration, and also telecommunications. They've also done significant changes in some of the bureaucratic structure and trying to restructure the government. And in a sense, if you look at the amount of public infrastructure spending that's occurred in Libya in the past couple of years, and this $325 billion that's still on the books, I mean, the government infrastructure to be able to manage this kind of public spending is really like drinking from a fire hose. And so Libya has been taking various steps to reevaluate their management of these contracts. But the problem is, when you make these changes, what you're also doing is changing the way that U.S. companies and foreign companies have adapted to be able to manage their contracts. So there's often changes in contracts, there's often issues of payment, and so that serves to, this sort of evolution puts the business community right in the middle of this change. Now, taking all of that sort of as the backdrop, they signed a TIFA agreement in May of 2010. What a TIFA agreement is, Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, is basically a consultative process. So it's a tool for the Libyans, if they choose to use it, to work with the U.S. government to raise their institutional capacity to global standards, to be able to look at best practices and strategies, and to provide some technical assistance if the Libyans choose to accept it. The first consultation occurred, as David mentioned, in December, and USTR, Commerce, and the Department of Agriculture went. And I think that the first consultation was sort of more of an orientation, try to understand the process. And there may be opportunities coming out of just this first consultation to maybe provide additional information for Libya to look at its IPR regime and its trade facilitation and automation of customs service, which is very important. Automating a customs service is often one of the easiest and most direct ways to deal with elements of corruption. And it's also worth noting that the U.S. government has other programs that have been well received in Libya. There have been, the Department of Commerce has their commercial law development program, and the Department of State has been doing some entrepreneurship activities in Libya, which have been very interesting. So I guess in conclusion, there really hasn't been a direct effect from WikiLeaks. We haven't seen businesses suffer, we haven't seen contracts canceled, and we haven't seen visas pulled. But much of it will continue to the political relationship very much drives the future of the U.S. commercial relationship with Libya. As these reforms continue to take place, we think what we'll see, and we have seen, a rise in an independent Libyan business community. We as an organization look at a business community as part of civil society, and we think as the Libyan business community grows, that there will be, and reforms take place, there will be even more business opportunity. And I think one of the things that David and I both noticed was that there wasn't any kind of hesitation on either the part of the U.S. business community, many of them who were our members, so we weren't expecting any hesitation to hear their opinions and views on the difficulties and challenges in Libya, but also from the Libyan business community. They were very frank as far as what they saw is what needed to change. And to us, that was a very promising sign. And I think that we're going to see more of that as the private sector grows in Libya. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Chuck and David, for that very thoughtful and interesting overview of Libya. It sounds like Libya certainly is a more stable business environment today than Egypt is. I'm not sure I'd want to invest in Egypt right now, but I've just discovered Libya is a social welfare state, and people have less reason to be discontent. I think I'll just open the floor to questions. If you could please state your name and affiliation, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Ali Ramadan Abu Zakuk. I'm a Libyan American. I'm the Executive Director of Libya Forum for Human and Political Development, an NGO which is established outside Libya. There are no opportunities for NGOs to be established there. First of all, I thank both presenters for their insight information. And I want to first with Ambassador Mack. There are 2 points that I would like to, first of all, to congratulate you in describing that it is a facade state of affairs in the political system. There is no democracy there, and the word that you have used is facade, which is the real thing. There is no political participation. There is no civil society. I doubt how can we expect a reform just based on some openings only in the financial section. I know there are some opening there, but in the civil society, in the political participation, even people's congresses have been shown that less than 1% of participation, and sometimes because of incentives. If you don't come, you don't get your job. And for Chuck, how can we combat corruption? If the tools of combating corruption we don't have. No civil society, no rule of law, no freedom of expression. I mean, how can you combat corruption? And corruption is within the state itself. Thank you.